Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Thinking Out Loud Live, where we discuss our thoughts on different topics like mental health and entrepreneurship, mostly. Um, so basically, a lot of the things we're going to be talking about today is about mental health because of our affiliation with our nonprofit, Start Day One. Just want to tell you a little bit more about it. So Start Day One is a nonprofit foundation for mental health and suicide prevention because we've learned that a proactive approach is more effective in prevention versus a reactive approach where organizations are asking people and waiting until they're actually suicidal or have mental issues already. For us, we believe that a proactive approach of going out there and really reaching out and helping people change their perspective is actually more effective. So our goal with Start Day One is to change people's perspectives from dreaming of one day to starting day one. Day one means there's a day two, day three, day four. So we've learned that people that want to make a difference or change in themselves get overwhelmed. But really, it's because they're thinking of so much to change, but really they just don't know where to start. So we're telling people that it really just starts with day one. So anyway, today we have actually a special guest. So she's gone through and she's going to share with us her stories of how she's gone through, depression. She was actually a Hollywood star and she was actually killing it. But she realized she was actually kind of like an imposter and not really being herself and living in this like fake environment. And she just got caught up in it. So she's kind of going to just tell us her experiences, what she's gone through, her mindset. And so we want to introduce to you Amanda Gist from Nevada.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
Good. I'm excited to be here. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Sure.
So before we start, can you just from your own words, let the people know kind of what you're about, what your background is, and kind of what you're up to now?
Sure. My background is obviously in acting. I spent about 5 years down in LA acting, and that was a big part of my life. It really became my identity for a long time. So when I left LA, which I think we'll kind of get into that story a little bit later, I really struggled to find where I was going to go next. And because of my mental health struggles and just kind of the path that my life took, I ended up in the mental health advocacy space. And that's really where I am now and where I place a lot of my energy and a lot of my time and a lot of my resources, speaking and writing. And right now I'm running some online support groups during social distancing and just really trying to give back to the community in mental health and trying to provide them with some resources and some information and some support that would have really benefited me when I was going through the situation myself.
Right, because those things weren't there for you during that time.
Right.
Yeah. So, kind of tell us the story of like what you were going through, because it's really interesting. You're like, I'm watching your videos and I'm like, oh, wait, what? She was on Friends, Unless it was really cool. Like, that must have been like such a fun experience. So at what point did you get to the, like, you're killing it, right? So you're now in a place where everyone's kind of dreaming of. And at what point did you kind of hit where it hit you and you're like, I'm not in the right place,
I had been working in LA for probably a good 4 years out of the 5 before I started to realize that I was really kind of living this double life. It was very glamorous and shiny on the outside, and behind closed doors, I was dealing with some pretty severe depression, and I was bulimic, and I was just not really functioning at a good capacity.
Yeah.
And the thing that really was a turnaround for me and something that really opened my eyes was actually when Robin Williams took his life. And that kind of brought me to a space where I felt like, here's this actor who has the career that all of us actors in LA are trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough to keep him here.
Right.
And it was really scary. It was really scary to realize that, because I was chasing this career that I thought would fulfill me and, fill that empty space and take care of the depression and take care of the eating disorder, and everything would be fantastic and perfect and shiny, just like you see in the media.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you got there, that would be perfect and life would be great. But
Right.
Right. And it just became, when he took his life, it just became very obvious that that's not the answer. And if I didn't start dealing with things now, there was not going to be any magical road that took me there.
So did you just one day just quit Hollywood and say, all right, today's the day, I'm out, packed your bags and left? Or how did that, or was it like a slow transition? Like, how did that happen?
Oh, it was slow, and it was a slow burn. It was very hard to do. My family never told me, you're done, come home. But they were very much insinuating that was the direction I needed to go. They were just kind of watching me sink from, 500 miles away, and there wasn't much they could do. And at the end of the day, it really came down to, it was, the only thing harder than staying was leaving, and there really wasn't a choice. I was asked in an interview at one point that, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I think I mentioned something about doing more serious roles, and I, some shiny answer. And I got home that night, I was thinking about it, and the truth was, I didn't see myself alive in 5 years. And so there needed to be some major changes.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think a lot of people obviously was affected by the Robin Williams incident. I was actually talking to one of the potential future speakers, and he was actually one of the different, I guess, catalysts for a change also in his life. He obviously used it kind of for the better, which is a good thing. And, actually, when that happened, we do a lot of events with our brand clothing and stuff like that. It's an inspirational brand to let people know, we try to inspire, motivate people to live life, take more risks. But anyway, as we talked about it, once that happened, we used it as an example, because I actually lost my brother to suicide. And, the biggest thing that I learned was that whenever anybody gets sad or depressed, it's not actually their situation that sucks. Like, for example, you're in Hollywood, you were killing it, you're on your way, the progression was awesome, but your perspective really sucked, right? And same thing with Robin Williams. I mean, he's up there, he's basically a freaking big time celebrity.
Superstar.
Right, like superstar. The whole world knows him.
And like his whole life. Way back in the Mork and Mindy days, like forever. It wasn't just like 5 years he was famous. He was famous for 30 plus years more.
Right. So anyway, we mentioned people, like, it's all about your perspective. And that's why rock stars are committing suicide, while the homeless are the one trying to stay alive. So the only difference is that their perspective is a little off. And so that's what we try to change people's perspective. That's why our mission with Start Day One is changing people's perspective, right? From dreaming of one day and starting day one, right? It's a hard thing to when you think you have to change so much, you almost paralyze yourself. You end up not doing a thing about it. Whether it's leaving Hollywood, you're like, oh, but what am I going to do? And this, it's like, you have to decide to leave Hollywood, and then things come automatically, So we always emphasize, like, you have to make the decision first. That's the very beginning. Once you make the decision, everything will follow automatically. As soon as you decide, you know what, I have to get help, or I have to leave Hollywood, all of a sudden things come together on what you need to do to make it happen, right? But it starts with day one, day two. You didn't do everything in the first day. It takes a while. One, it has to hit you first, like, holy shit, I'm leaving Hollywood. Like, what am I doing? I worked so hard to be here, and now I'm just gonna leave it. Like, and then I think, you probably go through that sense of guilt, like, oh my God, how many people would trade with me? What am I doing? So you're doing this internal fight with yourself, but really you needed to just change your perspective that like this is unhealthy, because the ultimate goal is always happiness, right?
Mhm.
It's not
Right.
it's not the money, it's not the
Mhm.
fame, it's not this, because it's there's so much proof of it. You know what I mean? There's so much evidence that, you know, whenever you get that, nothing's going to happen. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, at least, that I tell people, like, when you're just trying to achieve certain things that are finite, you kind of get lost after you've achieved it, right?
Right.
I'm going to be a star, I'm going to be Hollywood, boom, and you did it. So now what?
Mhm.
Now I'm going to get the Oscars, and it's always like something like that. But a better way to kind of plan everything is you got to have a sense of purpose. So I always kind of put together entrepreneurship and mental health somehow, because it's kind of like when you have a business. If you don't have a mission, it's very easy for yourself to stop being innovating and just
Mhm.
really losing your path.
Yeah.
So then it kind of stops from there. So when you're going through that, I mean, bulimia, right? Like
Right.
you're basically always hiding it, right? So
It's you're very much hiding it. It's very isolative, and it just is a secret from everyone to the degree that you are lying to people, and it really turns you into someone that you're not, because
yeah,
you're covering up this entire life that's underneath you. And so much of it is about control and trying to maintain this control over, your how your size and your weight and your
yeah,
looks, and trying to maintain this control. And it's really underneath that your life is out of control, and the eating disorder is a manifestation of that. And that's in a big way what it was of mine. I definitely felt in a sense of control, and um, my life was very, very far from that.
yeah. Yeah, I think every time anyone ever tries to reach that perfection, there's
Hmm.
always gonna be, tough times, right? Because it's
Hmm.
hard to achieve.
Yeah.
We were talking about this, and sometimes it's not necessarily, it's really just your perspective on the whole situation, right? Like trying to reach that the epitome of what version you're thinking of. It's not that that's a bad thing. It's kind of like the Olympics, right? When you're in the Olympics, I mean, that's just the hardest. I mean, I used to wrestle, so my God, being in
Okay.
a freaking Olympics is, I can't believe what they go through. I mean, the losing weight and then
Hmm.
competing and wrestling every day. But no matter what, the struggle is going to be fucking hard, like
Yeah.
hard. But you're trying to be the best. So I
Mhm.
get the struggles. It's the way it affects you trying to pursue that, the achievement. And when your perspective is shot, kind of like when people get lost trying to be a millionaire, right?
Mhm.
Not a bad thing to try and attempt to do that. But then all of a sudden you leave all the relationships behind and you forgot about your kids because
Mhm.
you're so busy with work. It's like, that's when it's not cool, you know? So
Right.
it's really, well, like, you have to have such a balanced perspective, like a perspective on what you're really trying to do. Like, is it really good for you? And that's where the purpose goes into play, because the purpose always kind of keeps you in line, right?
Mhm.
When I talk to people about balancing their life, it's like I always kind of picture like balancing on a rope, right?
Right.
Yeah, like tightrope. When you're
Yeah.
balancing yourself on there, never look down. Basically, keep your chin up,
Mhm.
because you're going to fall even worse, because you're scaring the shit out of yourself for every step you're taking.
Right.
What's better is looking ahead and looking at where you're trying to go.
Right.
And then that's actually how you balance yourself a little bit better. So when I tell people how to balance themselves, that's what you have to do. You have to look at your sense of purpose. That's way ahead. Every step is scary. Don't look down and keep your head up. You got to keep your head up, or else you're going to get scared. Because if you look at every single step along the way, like, it's not working, I'm not going to make it. Oh, man. And now you're bugging out, and now you're going to fall even more. But if you're
Right.
just looking at, your purpose way down the road, it makes it actually a little bit easier.
Right.
So now in your situation, when you finally stopped, was there a trigger when you finally said, damn, like I need to make a change? Like, and who did you go to, or did you talk to anyone, or?
I actually left LA and moved home with the intention of getting help. I thought that I would go home for maybe a year and treat my depression and treat my eating disorder and go back to LA to this career I loved, and everything would be fantastic. And it's 5 years later. And not only has treating my depression taken that long, but my depression continued getting worse while I was treating it. And so about a year after I had been here, a friend of mine, I was still struggling with the depression. I hadn't yet taken that step into treatment. I hadn't yet looked into medications. I was not in therapy. I was not working on my mindset. I was not doing any of that yet. Like I said, I really spent that year crying and spinning my wheels because I didn't know where my life was going next.
Yeah.
And at that point, a friend of mine took his life, and I related to him so much that it scared me into getting help.
Yeah.
There were people around that were saying, as many people believe, that were saying it was selfish and,
Yeah.
you know, it's a selfish decision. And I can't believe that he did that. And all these things that you hear from
Yeah.
people who don't understand and don't have that perspective.
Mhm.
And I was sitting there thinking, I get it. I get why you did it. I understand. I would make the same choice.
Mhm.
And that was really the wake up call of, you know, I need to take this seriously and get into treatment and get some help, because this is the path I'm going down.
Right. So that's a good thing that you kind of, instead of going like, shit, that was a good move, maybe I should join them, you know? And
Right.
it always is 50-50. There's some people that did do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Robin Williams happened, the 50% said, ooh, maybe I should do something about this because I'm going to end up there. And the other 50% are going, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait a minute. And all it is really, right, is really you're just trying to stop the pain, right? That's what you're trying to do. So from my experience, right, I don't really like saying depression is kind of causing things, because depression is an emotion. Depression is a response to something. Your thought patterns, your perspective, it's what's creating that negative perspective. It's what's creating that depression. And basically you're getting depressed. Once your thought patterns makes you depressed, now you get into depression, right? So it's not reverse. And I think we're kind of hurting ourselves by having that perspective that what doctors say, right? It's supposed to be you get depression. But the doctors are going like this. You have depression. I don't know what to do for you. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, and now my perspective is shot. That's not how it works. Your perspective is really affecting you. Your mind is so powerful that it actually affects your physiology to the point that it produces so much cortisol because it has no idea. It thinks it's the fight or flight system, right? And whenever you panic or think about something, cortisol starts pumping. And that actually what they mean about that chemical imbalance. So many people blame the chemical imbalance and now I'm depressed. No, actually your perspective, your thought pattern is triggering your amygdala, and it's saying like, whoa, there's a freaking lion somewhere. Like you need to let's put some cortisol up in this thing. The thing is, in the whole animal world, the cortisol is supposed to just pump out for like 90 seconds. You know, when the lion's gone, you're supposed to like get the hell out of there and be safe.
You're not meant to live in that state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is, as humans, we have the ability to future think, right? Like all of a sudden we think of all the potential. Might not even happen. Like it might not even happen, and you're bugging out. So now your cortisol is just kicking your own ass, right?
Right.
And so the problem with this, the problem with when people start, you actually mentioned this as the invisible enemy almost.
Invisible illness. Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is because it is, right? It's like, it's hard to fight something that's invisible. That's why everyone's having a hard time. My thing with that is anxiety and depression, they're emotions. They're actually the result of things.
Right.
The cause is always a verb. Always, always, always. It's never a noun. It's not, my parents is what caused me to be this. Everyone has parents. So what did they do? I have to know that. Oh, I have anxiety. My anxiety is kicking up, or, really acting up today. And I talked to this one guy, and I'm just like, you don't get anxiety and then you become anxious, and then it changes your mind. You're thinking about something that's making you anxious. Now you have anxiety. So I asked him, like, well, give me an example, because I need to get to the bottom of this. And the only way to find out is you have to remedy the cause, not the result, right? So he starts saying, when I'm driving, I just get really anxious. And I'm like, everyone drives. So what is making you anxious? He's like, I don't know. I guess like when I'm driving, I think I'm going to get in an accident. Now we're getting somewhere. Your perspective is that when you're in a car, you're going to get in a freaking accident. Of course you're going to get anxious. Well, now you have anxiety, but you're taking pills to kind of drown out that stuff. And so that's what I think. It's like, we have to see it. We have to change our perspective with the mental health. It's not the other way around. Right? So you have to really look for the cause. It's almost like when people say, for example, PTSD, I've learned that people just hold on to excuses when they're in a bad state of mind. They don't mean to, obviously. Like, who the hell wants to stay in depression? Like, no one does. But when you're in that state, you tend to love excuses. Accountability. Oh my God, you want to stay away from that. You want to end up blaming something all the time. Right? PTSD, depression, anxiety, instead of taking accountability for it. Like, well, that's because my dad beat me. So now, that's just how it is.
But that's the cause.
Right. But yeah. And the thing is your response, you have full control of that. Full control of that. Like, I understand bad shit happens. When I lost my brother, obviously I'm going to fucking think about him. Someone actually went up to her one time and was like, don't mind me, I'm a little sad because I just lost my sister. And what did you tell her?
I said, well, you're supposed to be sad. You're supposed to be sad. You're supposed to be. You're doing your steps. Like you're on your way to accepting it and moving on.
Yeah. And one of the things that's hurting people today, I have no fucking clue when depression became abnormal. I have no clue. Like,
it's an emotion, you're supposed to have it.
You go through it because it's necessary. It's not like because you feel like it. It's because it's necessary. Somehow you're going through something. Do you know the 5 stages of grief?
Grief, yeah.
Yeah. Starts with denial, right? Then anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And And I tell people all the time, how many positive results are there from that? Just one. Acceptance.
Just one.
These are all negatives, right? But you have to go through this. Sometimes you go back and forth on it. But once you get to acceptance, it's almost rare that you'll go back again. But until you go through that, depression is always the hardest part. When people tell me they're depressed, I always tell them, good.
Yeah.
Sounds fucked up at first.
Good.
But I change their perspective. I go, you're almost there. Because you have to go through it. By taking these drugs, it's the same thing as alcohol and drug abuse. The only reason they're doing that is to just numb the pain. But the thing is, they're postponing for them to get better. You have to embrace the pain so you can appreciate the pleasure. It's almost impossible until you do that. And so that's what we're trying to do, right? Is all this making sense to you? Like,
Sure.
Yeah. Because when your perspective is a little bit different, I've learned that it starts with a negative perspective that evolves to becoming suicidal tendencies. This is the end, obviously. Once you commit suicide, there's nothing else, right? Depression, anxiety, all that stuff is one line. It's one line. People think it's this way, that way. Like, no, this one's bulimia on this side. Oh, this one's anorexic. Oh, this one's drug abuse. Like, no, same cause. Like, it's the same cause, just different results from it. Like, sometimes people just jump. They just go from like, well, this sucks, suicide. Like, they don't even go through the depression part. They just, I can't handle it.
Or any of the slow, like self-destruction.
Yeah.
Alcoholism.
What do you
addiction.
think kind of affected you? That kind of, because almost all the time it's something from the past. Almost all the time. What do you think kind of, I don't know, affected you growing up? That kind of like lowered your self-esteem, that made you feel like you weren't good enough? Because, I mean, you're Hollywood, you made it up there. It requires a sense of confidence to get up there. And that's where the difference is, right? There's a self-confidence, but there's also self-esteem. Self-esteem is obviously the fucking more important one. And, some people can't tell the difference with what was the difference, self-esteem, self-confidence.
Right.
From a guy's point of view, this is what I tell him. I'm like, dude, you can have the confidence to go up to every girl, but you don't have the self-esteem to take a rejection.
Right.
So that's two different things, right?
Right.
So what do you think kind of just, I don't know, kind of just broke you or something, like from the past,
I learned pretty young. I was a gymnast when I was growing up, and I learned pretty young that in that sport, your value is dependent on how much you weigh and how you look.
10 points.
Right.
You need the perfect 10, right?
Right.
I was doing this too, so I got you.
Yeah. And so I started singing and dancing and acting when I was really little too. So between all of those things, I was really enmeshed in this world of learning that my worth was really based on my looks. And then I also grew up in the Britney Spears age where, you're being told that that's how you're supposed to look and that's the acceptable way to look. And that's how girls your age are supposed to look. And it really came together as constantly feeling like not enough.
Yeah, I guess that I could see how that can happen.
I relate to that. I relate to all that.
Express yourself.
I relate to all that.
No, that's what it is for.
Yeah,
Why do you relate to that?
I do. I relate to that. I kind of, the self-esteem and all that stuff. I totally relate to that because I was in a situation like that as well. Like growing up my whole life, it was always, everyone would say, oh, you're pretty, you're this, you're that, whatever. And I wound up in a really toxic relationship for 16 years with someone who expected me to, and I had to, and I did, I had to look a certain way and dress a certain way and act a certain way at all times. Like I had to be dressed up to the nines in heels at home watching TV because that's how I was expected to look. I know. Sorry,
like, where'd that go? At least one night.
He gets the sweatpants and no makeup and the hair in a bun. But that's because you love me. But yeah, so I and I had to look, perfect all the time. And he had a lot of money and what have you. And it was just, and the more I tried to please him and the better I tried to be, the worse he treated me. And so I tried to get better and better and better. And, I didn't have any eating disorders or anything like that. I didn't go that far. And I didn't, get into drugs or alcoholism or anything. But it was definitely a lot of mental and emotional beat down on a daily basis from him. Yeah. And finally, just one day I was like, all right, I'm done. I've had enough of this. And enough was enough for me. I couldn't do it anymore. And here I am, happy 10 years later.
Good. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Shut up. honestly, from in my heart, it was all him, though. He did. Yeah, he
This is recording, right?
That.
This is recording. I'm gonna need that clip. I'm gonna need that clip. Keep that in the records.
But yeah, it changed my perspective on my whole situation. I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
I'm out. I just had to get away. So I just literally woke up one morning and I just started packing my stuff. I didn't even think about it. I just got up, walked to the other room and started packing and failed. I left everything. I took my clothes and my cats. I left everything. And expensive possession that I had that he had given me. I left it because I just didn't want any reason for him to have to contact me ever again.
Yeah.
And that took 8 years for him to stop trying to contact me. So yeah, so that's good. But yeah.
Yeah. So
But I
you
get
know, it's crazy when you you get molded. And that's funny. Sometimes there's the negative aspects of too much competition, right? Like when the parents are pushing perfection, you know, kids in college jumping off the building because they got an A minus. You know, like, holy crap. And because their perspective is end of the world, like end of the world. And that's why I don't like when, you know, they push this thing about every kid getting a trophy.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't teach you how to handle loss,
Right.
any loss, right? So not only does it teach you to compete more, you know, you're supposed to strive. It's the best time to teach the kids because it's not real life yet, you know, it's just a game, but it teaches them to, you know, to develop adversity and all that stuff. So it's necessary. And
to actually accept failure or defeat.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a friend that admitted, he's just like, I'm basically one of those, like everything went my way. Like, you know, good looking dude, good in sports, got the girls, this, that. And all of a sudden it just kind of stopped. And he was just like, he doesn't know how to take it in. He's just like, I always got my way. Like, this is weird. What the fuck's my trophy, you know? So he's bugging out. But yeah. And that's why when people, like, obviously, you know, the first heartbreak, doesn't matter where you're coming from, even with all the losses, heartbreak sucks, like, big time.
Right. And you can't outrun that.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you've never felt loss before, and that's the first one you feel, end of the world.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I think these kids are we're not training them. They're in training until they're 18. 18, you're supposed to train them so that they can live without you and make it through. But when you don't provide these simple things, you know, like, you know, it's parental guidance. We're kind of losing that. At least I think, you know, like, you have to teach these things. You can't rely on school to teach you this, you know. I feel like a lot of times you kind of just put in, oh, here's gymnastics, see ya. You know?
Or here's your phone. Here's your cell phone.
Right. They'll teach you, you know. But it's so cool. You came in at the time in the generation where the social media was really just pumping.
Just starting,
like really pumping.
Yeah, we saw the progression of it.
And you were the ones all of a sudden comparing with everyone out there. You know, like
right? Especially in Hollywood. Especially in that industry.
Yeah, social media has it's really become like your own mini Hollywood in your pocket all the time.
Right.
You know, you pull out your phone and pull up an app, and there's just this long feed of, you know, lives and homes and cars and bodies and looks and makeup and all these things that you don't necessarily, maybe your life doesn't look like that.
Yeah.
And that makes you feel inadequate.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Most people's lives don't look like that, and never will.
Right. Dude, the ones that even look like that, their life isn't like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you're not seeing
my life actually did look like that, and I walked away from it. But my life actually did look like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that can definitely take a toll because, you know, when you're comparing yourself with that fake reality, of course you're gonna lose. Like, you're never gonna be better than fantasies. Like, of course not, right? And it really sucks because you find yourself comparing with everyone else and thinking that really they're just, no one's gonna put on there like, hey, I can't pay my bills this month. You know,
right?
Man, I look ugly as hell. You know,
all my cellulite, like what, you know, no one's gonna be like, no one's really proud of that kind of stuff, or they're not going to blast about it. You know?
And people just really need to know that, though. You know, it's like there has to be kind of like, and that's the part, right? The perspective is everyone's better than me. You know, it sucks compared to everyone else, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand what they're posting though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what do you think they're going to post, about the divorce? Like,
Right. Right. Yeah.
but a lot of times, they even post just to get that sort of attention too,
Mhm.
So, it's tough. So growing up in that, I can see how it could totally affect your life. Like
Right.
for us, because we didn't live in that era, it's like, it's actually hard for us to stay on it only because of my businesses and what I do. Then I'm just like, oh, gotta do this again.
It's hard. It's hard.
I can relate to that now. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Welcome to the real world.
Right.
Welcome.
We try to post and do things just to keep the businesses active and stuff, but it's hard every day. And then
Yeah, it's not in me.
oh my God. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah, like
It's really hard.
I could do so much more, with the clothing and this and that. But I'm just like, this is really not. I'm not living.
It
I'm
becomes
missing
a full-time
things.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm missing things. So
Mhm.
So anyway, we've talked about the perspective of the past. Obviously, our goal is to change people that's watching their perspective. What things, your perspective-wise, your mindset, what helped you get to where you're at now? And obviously, actually, I'll start with that, and I'll ask another question. But yeah, what helped you? What mindset? What do you do? What kind of tools? Because someone might be out there bulimic, and they're watching. So
Yeah. One of the biggest things that made a huge difference for me was going to therapy. And that's because therapy works on your mindset.
Yeah.
And works on your cognition and how you process thoughts and can turn a lot of that around for you.
Yeah.
And I went to therapy for several years, and I went through several therapists, and it wasn't until I found someone who worked in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that I really started making progress. And that's because of exactly what you're talking about. You have to restructure those thoughts that provide you with that perspective that gets you stuck in those places that you can't see forward, and you can't, the hole of depression where you can't see around it.
Yeah.
And it's a conscious effort. It's something that takes effort. Even today, if something goes wrong in my day, I have to take a break and sit down and cognitively challenge the thoughts in my head.
Yeah. And so actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's actually where I was going to go with this. And people have to change their perspective on mental health, that it's almost exactly as physical health. Just because you're in shape doesn't mean you can eat like shit and not diet and exercise anymore. The reason they're in shape is because they keep doing that. The ones that are gaining, weight or whatever, you don't wait until now I can exercise. Same thing with your mind. It's gonna be forever. Like it doesn't stop and like, whoa, I cannot get depressed anymore. That is so odd. Like he just passed away and I'm still good. That's weird. That's abnormal. And I want people to understand, like, depression is not abnormal, because the second you think it's abnormal, the more you think there's something wrong with you, and then your perspective is shot. Like, oh my God, I have that thing called depression. How am I going to get rid of this? Shit, I'm going to need some drugs for this. And so that kind of messes you up. People have to understand it's just like anything else, just like mental health. It's an ongoing, never-ending thing. You could be 90. If you start eating like shit, I'm telling you right now, you're going to die earlier. Like, it's just the way it is. Same thing with your mental health. So actually, teal, the color teal, is our theme color. That's why I got the pineapple. So teal is our theme color. And we created an acronym for people that want to help with suicide prevention. It basically helps people to know what to give others and what to give themselves. T stands for putting in time, effort, attention, and then love. When you do that, a lot of these organizations are very reactive. Oh, you have bulimia? Let me help you. But they don't help you beforehand. And I always tell people that's like waiting for someone to be 500 pounds to go to the gym and tell them, hey, you need to diet more or you need to exercise more. Like, why are you waiting all the way here? Like, that's weird. And same thing with suicide. Why are you waiting until they get here? That's so weird. Shouldn't you get them like over here because they're complaining about Monday? Right? Like once that's the beginning, complaining. Then it dives down. But all starts with because your perspective sucks. Whatever your perspective is, your decisions follow. Right? So the teal is something you have to give yourself and others like all the time. This is your vegetables, right? I tell people like with the physical health, the way they're trying to remedy the result is by saying, hey, just make sure eat. Basically it's telling people to eat whatever they want and then we'll just look for symptoms of whatever disease you come up with when you eat like shit. And it's just like, well, that's weird. Yeah, diabetes is one of them. Diabetes is actually reversible, right?
Just by diet alone.
Yeah, just by diet alone. So again, it's because doctors are now looking at the cause of diabetes. It's bad diet. So when you have diabetes, well,
they just give you drugs.
Right. And so teal is kind of like the vegetables. When people have kids, they don't say eat whatever you want until they get diabetes. They say eat your vegetables, go outside, go play, exercise, all the healthy things to prevent diabetes. Right. Well, why aren't we doing that with our mind, the mental health? Well, yeah. And putting in the time, effort, attention, and love is
the beginning when it all starts.
Is the vegetables you give your kids. You know what I mean? You don't give teal when they're suicidal or when they're depressed. Like, I saw symptoms of depression. Let me go take them to the park. Like, take them to the park already. Like, what do you mean?
Been taking them to the park.
Right. So, so these are kind of things like we want people to just change their perspective on how they're dealing with this because it's just wrong. And it's actually making things worse. From our experience, we always say that, when I told you earlier, it's about the accountability and the excuses, right? It's really tough when you're in a bad place. But when you teach people more accountability for their own experiences and stuff, it actually is just more beneficial for them. For example, when doctors are putting the depression as the blame, it actually doesn't help people because you've just now given them the best excuse as their backup of why they think that way. So I'm actually almost telling people people that are in depression, don't just go, my depression is acting up. I'd rather them say the cause. Man, my ability to forgive my dad for kicking my ass is really getting to me today. That's a different story, right? Instead of going, the depression, you're fighting an invisible fucking fight. Like, you're going to lose. Definitely. Guaranteed you're going to lose if you keep fighting depression. Oh, my anxiety's kicking up today, really acting up. No. Your thought pattern on whatever caused that, you need to explain that that's what's causing the anxiety. Right. If you just go anxiety, you're never going to win because you're not dealing with the cause, right? So even with PTSD and this, I get it. You went through some traumatic event, post-traumatic, got it. But don't just go, my PTSD. No, oh man, I can't seem to freaking, I'm having a hard time letting go of my, partner getting killed in action. Say that. Because that's the cause of it. Don't just go PTSD because every time I've kind of talked to people, they keep using it as that excuse. And I get it. The result is you have PTSD. Got it. What the fuck are you doing about it? You can't just go, well, I have PTSD, so now I can be an asshole. That doesn't make sense to me. So you have to call it something else, right? It's like me going around, just saying oh, man, I'm really depressed because I just lost my brother. Now it's more understandable. And that's where this almost I guess people might call it that stigma, oh, here we go again. It's because you're giving this invisible thing. And that's why the fight is harder. Because how can you relate to that? Oh, my depression. But if people told you like, dude, I used to live like this and poor as hell, and my mother was never there and this and that, and I'm having a hard time with that still, people are going to go, oh, well, that does suck. So man, my bad, dude. You know what I mean? Different story.
Yeah.
But if you just go depression, and the thing is, people that do that, they almost forget what they're even depressed about anymore because
A
they
lot of
just
times
keep
they
using
do.
that. So you never win. You never win when you're fighting the freaking result. You know, it's like fighting diabetes. It's like, dude, what are you eating?
Mm.
That's the cause. Like you're still eating like shit, but you keep going like, oh man, fucking diabetes. Yeah, but what are you still eating? I don't understand. You keep
Right.
complaining about diabetes, but you're still eating the same exact things. I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. So that's where it comes, right? So that's what we're trying to achieve out there. So other than that, so, you know, what do you tell kind of people now? Like, how do you help people that are kind of in your, or were in your kind of similar situation? Like, what's your move, you know?
Situation,
I tend to really focus on the people who can't see an end game, who have gotten so far down that they don't see a future that they exist in.
Yeah.
And that is really a message that I like to focus on. And that's
Great.
really like an area I like to focus on because that's where I spent a lot of my time. And I really like to share the message that there is always an other side. There really is. If, you know, with the right changes made to your life, there's always an other side.
Yeah.
because you were there. You were in that situation. Okay.
Right. You know, it's funny. You know, sometimes you read something or hear something and just kind of sticks with you, right? And whenever you think about, actually, I think it was Anthony Robbins or something. And there was this one lady that he talked to and, you know, successful. Everything was good. And I think it was something about a relationship that, you know, she was supposed to be married with kids and, you know, with basically a great life by now. Like, I'm freaking 40, I forget what age or whatever.
Yeah.
And what he was saying is like, everyone has this like blueprint of their life and they can't fucking let go as if there's no other blueprint for it. It's almost like, so that's why they regret, because this is the timeline. Oh, this didn't happen, so we went this way. And
Right.
now you're here, and the only way to fix everything, if I can go back, if I could just change this one thing, then my life would be good. And so people get stuck on that because they can't see a different version of their life. And because of that perspective, it actually hurts them because they just go back of could have, would have, should have. And like 3 years ago, we actually developed the cure to regret. At first, we're like, whoa, what the fuck? Is that the cure to regret? Regrets are just personal experiences that you never forgave yourself about. That's it. Keyword is personal experience. You never regret for someone, ever.
No.
Right? It has to be something like as if it was your fault. It has to be, I could have, would have, should have. It's never he could have, should have, would have, and now my life would have been better.
Yeah.
If I could have, would have, should have. When you ask yourself those questions, the answer is you didn't.
Yep.
Forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
I had to. I struggled with that for a long time after I left my ex, to forgive myself for allowing myself to be an idiot for that long, I guess.
That's a long, yeah,
You know, but I mean, I forgave him. I forgave him. You know, I had to, because if I never forgave him for being an asshole, I just would never have moved on with my life. So I long forgave him, but I never truly forgave myself. And then when I realized that that's what I had to do, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I have to forgive myself for allowing him to treat me that way and to do all the things that I did and to live the way that I lived because someone else put those ideas and ideals on me. And it took a long time for me to forgive myself. And it was a struggle for a very long time.
I think it's one of
but it was when I finally did, I was like, okay, this is, I have to accept it, and that's it. It's done. It's over. I forgave myself for it.
Yeah.
And life is so much better since.
It's like, let me take that off you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just
Huge weight off my shoulders. Yeah, it really, really was.
No, it's true, because I think a lot of times, even I go through it. And this is why I tell people it is impossible to live life to the fullest, because that's not life.
Right.
Because you have to go through the struggle. You're in Hollywood. What movies exist where there's no conflict or struggle? Like there's
even all the romantic comedies, there's still some sort of conflict or struggle in there. You know, does she lose the good guy? Does she lose the job? Or whatever.
Yeah, you wouldn't watch it.
Always a struggle.
You know what I mean? It's rags to riches. It's riches to riches is weird. You know?
Nobody would watch it, right?
Yeah, so the struggle is actually what makes the movie just more meaningful. So in real life, it's actually what makes your life more fulfilling. Whatever you went through is actually making your life even more fulfilling today because of what you've gone through, and you appreciate more in this. At least that's a perspective you should have, because that's supposed to be what happens. I was talking to someone, letting them know, same thing with sports, gymnastics. The level of difficulty didn't increase as you go to the Olympics. Shit gets harder. Why the hell would people deliberately make it harder? Because the challenge, that's actually what makes it interesting. Video games. Imagine every video game where you win from the beginning to the end in one game.
You'd never
Like, you throw it out. And guess what people do when the game sucks? They do things they're not supposed to. They'll ride the car off. They'll start killing civilians, like, because it's boring. It's boring. It's just like, I keep winning. There's no challenge. But I don't know why, and I'm still trying to figure it out. When it comes to real life,
people don't want the challenge.
When people are experiencing these challenges, that actually makes life, more interesting. Like, for example, here we are looking at you, and I'm going, yo, check out this movie. Like, this girl was in Hollywood, and like, now she's talking to like people. This is sick. You know what I mean? So your movie is actually awesome.
Right.
You were just like, oh, my parents brought me to gymnastics, killed it, 10 all the time, won every pageant, became Hollywood, and now I'm rich.
It would be boring.
You're just going to be annoying.
It would be boring, and it would be boring.
You're just be annoying. You're like, you know what, whatever.
Exactly.
And because of what you go through, and same thing for every movie, if the movie just went, and then, Star Wars, like, no conflict. Hey, Darth Vader, what up? There's no movie. So that's actually required to make a meaningful life. And I still have to figure out how to get people to kind of understand that. What's up? Question?
I have a question, because I have our Instagram,
we're on Instagram on this
Instagram
side.
Live as well. So what sort of daily or weekly coping tools have you found that work? And do you find that coping tools become a chore more than helpful at times?
Some daily ones I use are meditation has become like a cornerstone for me. Journaling is a really good one because it gets me out of my head and I can get things down in black and white.
Yeah, usually, and once it's written down, it's like it's out.
Right.
Okay. That's
it's
true.
Really a way to process and kind of reset your brain. Like I said, the challenging your thoughts is a really big one for me. Like, as far as cognitive, it's a really good skill to use when you have negative thoughts. Literally take the time to consciously stop and say, how can I reframe this? How can I challenge this? Am I thinking rationally? Is what I'm thinking fact? Is what I'm thinking logical? And reframe it into something that makes more sense to you and is more accurate of your situation. I actually last week I went in with a nail in my tire and I ended up having to buy 4 new tires. And I immediately had this thought of, I'm never going to get ahead in life. And I came home and I literally had to sit on my couch and take some time to be like, you know what? I am further ahead than I was last year, so I'm making progress.
Nice.
I'm going to get ahead in life. It's just not going to happen as soon as I want it to. You have to make those shifts and make that conscious effort. And I have never, that's a lie. It has been a chore at
Mhm.
times.
Oh, it's like
It has to
exercising.
be, yeah.
Exercise is never awesome. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when you're really, it's always that,
It has
So
been a chore, but I have gotten to a space after doing it long enough that I appreciate it
Mhm.
and the results to a degree that it is no longer a chore.
Awesome.
So I would say
That
stick
makes
with it.
Stick with
Yeah.
it. All right.
Yeah. And I think it becomes that habit, right? Once you
Right.
condition yourself to do it that way, all of a sudden you
Mhm.
kind of do it. And that's why I tell people,
You
like,
should actually
dude,
appreciate it after you probably do, after you meditate and after you journal it. You're like, okay,
Right.
you know what? I actually appreciate that I took the time and did this because this just helped me.
yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much like, people need to kind of understand that. So it's like, look, you're, the proof of that. Like, it's a constant thing. Just
Mhm.
doesn't end. Always will be, because that is what life is about. Like, again, it goes back to the game. It's like,
Mhm.
so when people talk about like game of life, I've mentioned this actually someone's wedding, right?
Mhm.
Like, and it's really just, you're supposed to love the challenges,
Right.
you have to just embrace it. It's what happens. You don't go in a video game and going like, oh man, why the hell did they put this hard part for?
Right.
Like you have to just embrace it. Like, all right, I got to go through it. If I get through this, it's going to be awesome. But it's just that human nature. Like when you're playing video games and, you're already not killing it at all. So you just want to start over. You turn off the whole thing. You turn it off and you're like, well,
Reset button, that never happens.
yeah. And that's really the only crappy part in the real life is there's no reset button, But
Right.
in any case, it's just like it makes it challenging, and it's just more fulfilling. The game just becomes more fulfilling, and we really have to just see that about our lives, And
Mhm.
I tell people it's not about what is the meaning of life. It's what makes life meaningful.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's what you have to focus on. But it all
Mhm.
depends on your purpose. You have to have a sense of purpose, or else you're never gonna know how to get there.
Right.
You know, so people have to understand that. And like, what's cool is we were talking about the reframing and stuff.
Mhm.
We just recently talked to this guy. Hope we get him to be on our show. Dr. Hardy.
Mhm.
And he actually did science, and he's a PhD doctor.
Mhm.
He has now science that backs up that personality isn't permanent,
Right.
Mhm.
and he has
Mhm.
science that backs it up. So for
Right.
people that go, for example, like, well, my dad was an alcoholic, so now I am,
Or I'm going to be.
or I'm gonna be
going to be an
guaranteed,
alcoholic. Or
things like that. Or
I'm an Aquarius and this is my personality, so this is who I am because
right,
I'm an Aquarius.
right. People have that, and then
Permanent.
that belief system, they stay with it, and that's what they believe
Mm-hmm.
forever. And so now every decision goes as that. Like, oh, that's just me. I'm very analytical. Da da da. I'm not good with people. Who told you that? Like, you
Yeah.
told you that.
Right.
Like you told you that. I mean, if you want excuses, you can Google that shit, but
Yeah.
don't tell me that. Like, you know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah, so I'm curious. I'm really excited to kind of get that book. I'm not sure when he's releasing it, but I'll definitely let you know, because I
Yeah,
think
that's interesting.
It's a really interesting
yeah,
book.
interesting. It's not even
I
out
think it's
yet.
called, I think it's coming out in June. I think it's called Personality is Not Permanent.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that's the title.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm curious about the science of what he figured out in
Yeah.
that thing.
Yeah.
When we had our quick interview, a 5-minute or 15-minute interview, just about the show and stuff. So he
Yeah.
kind of mentioned the things, and I mentioned the same thing we talked about today with him, and he was just like, "Well, I did all the science for you, pal. Back it up." And I'm like,
Great.
"Oh, that's so awesome."
Wow.
Yeah. So I
That'll be
think
interesting.
it's going to be a nice way, because that nocebo effect from doctors, right? When you hear from doctors that something's wrong with you, it's very powerful,
Mhm.
Right.
very powerful.
Right.
You almost don't.
Sorry.
That's her
That's
fault.
okay.
Hit a button.
Yeah. So that was so if we can change that perspective and having another doctor saying, I've got science that says, nah,
Yeah.
that's not true.
Right.
It's not just, oh, depression, you're stuck with it forever. Because I've had people go, yeah, this doctor, diagnosed me with blah, blah, blah depression. And, she was on the, gave her pills and stuff. So she goes, when do I get off these? Like, the doctor just said, you don't. I'm like, that's an awesome doctor. Like, he didn't even look for the cause, nothing. He just went, well, you don't. Like, you're on pills forever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy for me. So I'm glad that I have, this the research now that hopefully backs up everything that we're talking about, reframing, changing your life, that it actually is possible. Because once you tell people that it's impossible, well,
They start to
now
believe
it's
it.
impossible.
You believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? So that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So I guess we kind of went over that hour, but hey, thank you so much. Does anyone have any last questions to ask Amanda? Like, any questions out there? How she got through things, and any tips? Anyone? Yeah, they're good.
They're all fine. They don't need anybody's help.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So, hey, Amanda, thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking the time to have a chat with us and just discuss and sharing your stories.
Yeah,
I think
really appreciate it.
I really hope.
Really.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I hope people kind of related with your story and learning like, I guess I don't have to be perfect,
Yeah.
and really help them out. So yeah, and I guess until next time, maybe we'll have you on again in the future,
Great.
and we'll do something else.
Merce Snack said, thank you. Really good stuff. Thank you for sharing your story.
Someone's saying thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right? Isn't that the fulfilling part of this? When you
It totally is.
You're like, oh, I'm not gonna cry. I told myself I'm not gonna cry. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you visit amandagist.com. She's awesome. She's always helping people. If you're looking for speakers, we're definitely going to use her as a speaker for future events and stuff. So
once we're allowed to have future events.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, until next time, check us out, startday1.org, and donate if you can. We're raising funds that actually helps us to get speakers like Amanda to go to different venues or creating content.
Yep.
They need that support too, because a lot of us are doing this for free. And, if we can help them, with even travel expenses or just getting them free events and paying them for it so that the venues don't have any excuses for Amanda to show up, that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
So, all your help would really be appreciated. And until next time, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, Amanda.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. And then that.